Today we're going to be doing more of a demo than a how-to, but either way, we'll be using a reasonably high-powered chainsaw and some other power tools and basic tools to make a Pumpkinstein carving from a pine tree log. Now the reason I call it a Pumpkinstein is pretty obvious. It's not a normal shape for a pumpkin. It's a little elongated, sort of like Frankenstein's head. But it's a nice little weather-tolerant decoration that can be used outside during Halloween, Thanksgiving, and throughout the fall, with or without its optional removable eyes and mouth. So first, I'll select a log for this project. In general, it doesn't much matter if it's a new or an old log, except for the fact that paint and polyurethane probably generally won't stick to something that hasn't had time to fully dry out, even though we'll be using more of a translucent wash that'll act more like a stain than an opaque sort of paint. So here I've just removed some bark and started right in on carving out the stem on top. And I'm trying not to make the cut marks too tight, so there's a little extra room to work with. And rather than use a chisel or a Dremel or something like that, I'm just whacking these extra pieces off with a sledgehammer and tossing them. Then I'm going back over the edges of the log and rounding them out a bit with the big chainsaw. After that, I go back and make some deep grooves, maybe 6 or 7 of them, fairly evenly spaced to look a little bit like the grooves on a real pumpkin. And keep in mind that this is a bit stylized, but you could always go back and make the top and bottom more rounded so it looks more like a real pumpkin shape. But in this case, I wanted it to look a little bit more like a caricature than something realistic. After that step, I used a small electric chainsaw to go back and refine the grooves and improve the cuts around the stem on top. And the great thing about using a smaller electric saw for this step is that it's much lighter and you can manipulate it a little better and get some more refined cuts. Now, to get rid of the black marks where the bark used to be, I'm just using a rough grit belt sander and shaving it down a bit. Not too much because I'd like it to look a little bit rustic. After that, I manually sand down any really rough edges or areas that I can't really reach easily with the sander. And because I didn't have any orange spray paint on hand, I decided to just use Walmart acrylics. These little bottles currently cost around 50 cents, and I probably used about 10% of the bottle mixed with a little bit of water, so it's really pretty cost effective. And you can see by mixing the colors with some water, the paint acts more like a wood stain than an acrylic, which is great, considering that I wasn't really going for an opaque look. If you're going to go ahead and use wood for a project like this, you may as well be able to tell that it's actual wood by making sure that some of the grain shows through. For the green stem on top, it's pretty much the same process. Just mix a little bit with some water and keep dabbing it until it looks semi-opaque and covers the entire surface that needs painting. Because this is acrylic paint, we don't have to wait too long for it to dry. But later on, when we're done, we'll let it sit near a heat source or a fan for a day or two to dry it out before its final weatherproof coating. It's starting to look more and more like a Pumpkinstein. And I've gone through my scrapwood box to pull out a few pieces that look like they could make nice eyes and a mouth. And my plan is to attach them with 1 or 2 screws, sort of like a Mr. Potato Head. Then later on, I can remove them and replace them with something different to change it up a little bit. Now I'm taking these Mr. Potato Head parts and spray painting them with a matte finish black paint I had laying around. And here's where you can get really creative. I was hoping to make this look a lot scarier. There are a lot of young kids who live nearby, so I've had to make it a lot friendlier looking, but I think it turned out okay. And here I'm just fixing these parts to the main log, using a pilot hole for a few wood screws, and making sure that these screws are long enough to go in a few centimeters into the pumpkin head itself. These sorts of screws are pretty easy to remove, so I can pull these parts off and polyurethane everything before putting it out for the season. This paint job should be good enough to last at least this season, and maybe I'll throw it into the shed for the winter to make sure and keep it safe from all the rain, snowstorms, and freeze-thaw cycles for the next few months. And we're done. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the demo. Please be sure to like and subscribe.